Good morning, people. Man, I hope everyone's having a good time out there. I know I am. Uh, hey, let's just get right down to business. Let's talk about this. So, Bitcoin daily chart. Uh, Tough to believe that we sat in this bullshit right here for basically 2 months, and then within what 3 weeks, basically eliminated all of that garbage. So, God, I mean, can't ask for much more than that at the moment. Got rid of all the drawings here. Let's just focus on one thing for the moment. Right now, we got Bitcoin, really just strong rising channel here overall. We got a few smaller patterns within this bigger pattern, but I mean, this we got a touch here, touch here. So if I was to draw a line across here, we were probably due for a touch here in the next couple of days. So let's assume that that's probably going to be the case, and we're going to get another upside pop. Really, if we look at this bigger pattern on the daily, we've only got 1, 2 touches on a trend line at this point. So I'd easily believe that we're going to get a third, if not, maybe a fourth when it comes down to it. But man, a lot of positive things going on. This is the daily chart, like I said. Bitcoin managed to establish support on top of the 200 moving average. Uh, and it's been sitting there. I mean, we got this day and then this day that we actually got above it. So basically 3 days in a row now, we're sitting above the 200 simple moving on the daily. Again, if we draw this line out here and we assume that we're going to get another pop, let's assume that it's going to run again this weekend, at least for the time being. Um, and I mean, in terms of the sheer size of the move, I'd say realistically anything up to this 54 range is feasibility. Probably run into some resistance here, 49-ish range. If we can clear that, again, I'm looking 54. Um, at that point, God, do I think that we clear out from 54 to 60,000 easily? I doubt it's easy, but if it's going to happen, I mean, Bitcoin's super bullish right now, so I mean, it's tough to bet against it. Now, what you are seeing on the chart here is an indication of bearish divergence on the daily chart. Obviously the bulls push that, and it's not a big deal. But the simple fact of the matter is, we look at the RSI here. We've got this higher high followed by two lower highs, although technically this high is slightly higher than this one. So this works, but this is a sign of a bearish divergence here. We're in overbought territory, but again, as you guys know, I mean, when everything's bullish, we can stay in overbought territory for a while. And really, are not like massively overbought. Even on the first move, it was up to 75. I mean, I've seen Bitcoin run up, well above that. I mean, here we were up at before we even topped out. I mean, Bitcoin was running at 90 on the RSI. So I mean, we could certainly see a bigger move out of Bitcoin from the RSI standpoint and still be able to sustain upward momentum. So gotta love what you're seeing here. As far as the stochastic RSI, I could draw a trend line here. We could draw a trend line here on the RSI, and I assure you that's what happens when we get rid of this. So let's add these back in. So we've got this nice trend line that we've been holding. When this trend line, once the RSI breaks this trend line, that's when I'm going to look at possibly exiting some positions in the short term. But again, this is the daily chart, so who knows if that's a week from now, 2 weeks from now, this thing could just stay pegged up here. So not too worried about that. And again, we still got a nice upwards trend line on the stochastic RSI. Same concept though, bearish divergence, higher high here than this. This is a lower high than this. Thus, it is a divergence that is bearish. This is also bearish divergence as far as this goes. We got the MACD higher momentum indicator here than here. Again, that's bearish divergence. So it's all over the place. So at some point, should we expect a pullback? Sure. When that happens, God, I don't know. Again, it could be up here at 54, could be closer to, it could be 49, could be any of these numbers really between here and here is what I'm going to be looking for. So, um, in either case, that's what we're going to be looking for. Looking at the chart, I mean, I think it's fairly safe to say that on the daily chart at this point, Bitcoin is in a rounded bottom. I mean, here, we we had these trend lines drawn out for quite some time now. Here we got this ridiculous bounce off of it, boom, and just cascading right up the side. And that's where I expected, hey, we're, chances are pretty good what we end up seeing here is this thing's going to rocket out up until it hits this major resistance. And when you get a cup and handle formation, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to get the cup followed by a bull flag handle, essentially a bull flag handle, or you could get another rounded bottom pattern, or it could just go blasting off through all of this. And it's one of those three things that are going to happen. Obviously, for the sake of increasing our supply of money, would love to see this thing just get smoked here and go ahead and actually take several days and just kind of work its way back down into a decent pattern. So that way we can go ahead and actually start making moves based off of Bitcoin patterns. Right now it's a little tough. I mean, we got some rising channels, which again they should break down 2/3 of the time. They haven't been, but again, long story short, I think that's really what we're looking for now. Um, obviously a lot going on the chart here, but we were just talking about this. So let me go ahead and get the thickness of this line increase so you can see what I'm talking about. So we got the real thick line there. That's basically our trend line that we're carrying right now. So again, my expectation would be that Bitcoin is probably going to come back down into this over the next few days. It's probably not going to lose this support at this point, just based on the amount of time we've already held it. It could very well lose that daily support, which is exactly what we're seeing at this level right here, about that 45,000 it's been holding. As long as that continues to hold and we move a little sideways, boom, we're going to get this next pop up here. And again, it's probably going to be to one of these fib levels here. This is the 0.5 fib level at 46 and change, almost 47. Probably, again, we'll probably get this pop up into here. So probably looking at about 51,000 at this point is I think where maybe we start seeing some tumult from Bitcoin there. But otherwise, I mean, this thing again, I think it's damn formation. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's just popping to the upside. Um, really, as far as anything else outside of that goes, let's just zoom in here. We had a 10-hour bearish divergence that played out here. Didn't really kill us, or not a 10-hour. Geez, this is the 4-hour. It was a ton of indicators. I mean, we basically had one day of downside. It's been a day of upside, and we're starting out a little bit the day. Um, well, Eastern time zone day, moving down a little bit. As long as it maintains support here, that's what I'm going to be looking for. And again, I don't even care if it necessarily touches back down on this line again. It's really held up, 1, 2, 3. I mean, 3 times already. So as long as it keeps holding up, then we're not worried about moving back down to 44,000. But this is a beautiful thing here. One thing I do see interesting here on the 4-hour chart, you guys know this. I use the fuchsia line to represent my 4-hour trend lines. Well, this was the 4-hour trend line. It was broken here, put in a bearish retest here. So I do think that probably in the immediate term, we're probably going to see a little bit of downside just temporarily. If nothing else, we might, try to tap down on this 4-hour 21 moving average again, which is sitting right at $45,000. So wouldn't be a massive surprise there. Again, as long as that keeps holding up, we're golden there. There I talked about patterns within patterns. It's interesting that this particular one here has held up pretty well. We've got tap, tap, and then we've got this kind of just riding along here. We've basically got a double top. I mean, again, it's evident that there's going to be some level of downside, however minimal it may be right now with Bitcoin being as bullish as it is. I'm finding that, like in terms of the patterns that we're getting here and what the expected measured move would be to fall out of it, Bitcoin's so bullish right now, it's not going to those full retraces. So my expectation is if we've got a pattern that looks like it's going to break to the downside, maybe it does, but it probably, Bitcoin maybe finds a way to establish support above where you would expect it to actually fall to. So that's what we're going to be looking for there. One other thing just for you guys, and this is why it's so important to be able to understand what you're seeing on these charts. I talked about it yesterday. I said, hey, right here, this is where I'm going to be making my purchases. So I did just that yesterday. I made a bunch of futures buys. I did a couple of 3x long buys right here. We got the bounce, exited the pattern like we talked about. These are going to break to the upside 2 out of 3 times. Double tap back test. I can't even begin to describe to you how important that concept really is in this market, especially. Ton of the times you're getting double tap back tests, boom, boom, another blast off, and then this is kind of this right here. This is actually the daily trend line. As far as if I flip it over to the daily chart, that's the one that we're riding up. But it also, again, you're going to see that it reacts across different time frames. Boom, we got a rejection here. Now we've got a 1 hour chart that is once again entering a descending channel type of setup. Let me extend this out. So now the question is, let's say we go ahead and put our trend lines around this, and let's just do just that. Let's change that one to orange to represent my hourly indicator. And let's go ahead and make a copy of that, drag that out. So now let's assume that this is gonna be what we're in until we're not in it anymore. Does it come all the way back down here? Possibly. The hourly is a sell right now on the stochastic RSI. MACD is preparing to curl to a bearish look. So yeah, we're probably going to see some short-term downside, maybe a little bit more even. Again, here's that $45,000 line. The VPVR, the point of control right here, it could act as support. If we go into even shorter time frames, we did get a bullish divergence signal. So, potentially I might suggest, hey, if we are going to get a nice divergence here, it's probably going to happen with Bitcoin touching one of these areas here. So maybe this is where we potentially look at opening up something. But I don't necessarily love this little pattern that Bitcoin has put together over the last, say, 24 hours, I guess would be close to approximate time frame there. And only because, again, it's been in this very narrow rising channel in itself, but it's hanging very close to the bottom of this previous rising channel, this larger pattern. So again, if we assume that we can take our TA and draw out a reasonable conclusion here, one of two things we're going to be looking for. If it falls out of that pattern and falls fully, well, that's 43,000. We just talked about it though. Bitcoin is super bullish right now. It's not even hitting anything down that far in terms of measured moves. So again, would my expectation be that we probably find support on this line if we do fall out? Absolutely. And if we don't, again, here's a potential place that we could look to find support once again. Granted, we've already done essentially a double tap back test of this line, but let's assume that we probably catch support here or here if we fall out. Flip side of this, let's assume that Bitcoin does decide, hey, I'm jumping off the bottom of this here. Well, this whole pattern is part of what we're talking about. And at that point, if we rise back to the top, boom, all of a sudden now we're sitting at $53-ish thousand, and that would be, potentially where I expect to find some real resistance once again. So, we got a few things, like I said, that may play out. In the immediate term, me just looking at it, I think that it's pretty reasonable to believe that we're about to lose this upper trend line here, and then not going to make a full measured move down here. Probably something right in here. And again, it could just go ahead and say, you know what, you have no idea what you're talking about. Your TA sucks, and it could just go blasting off from here. I don't necessarily see that being the case at the moment, in spite of said bullish divergence. Now, again, looking at the chart, we got a moving average here. And in fact, not only do we have a moving average, we have multiple moving averages that are just sitting right here. We got the 200, we got the 80, the 100, we got the 50, which is not acting as support at the moment. But we got 3 lines here, all MAs, that could act as support for Bitcoin. So again, my expectation, maybe we do stay bullish. We get a wick down into this region here. So maybe Bitcoin pulls back only 45.5. This smaller pattern within the pattern, this is, however, a Falling channel should break to the upside 2 out of 3 times. And if we go back to yesterday and we look at this falling channel, well, I mean, I guess we could sit here and say that it would be logical to get a nice bounce here, return back into this pattern, and then our measured move out of said pattern would be somewhere in the, let's assume it breaks right there. And again, we're putting in essentially a triple top. So we really, we're kind of in that precarious position here. Ideally, you guys bought stuff, a week ago, 10 days ago, if you're holding it still. Otherwise, again, those three X coins are great. But, again, I would be hesitant to sit here and tell you to bet big while we're sitting up here at this point. Not to say we won't still jump big, but I would be hesitant to say bet big. So hopefully you've been sitting on some stuff and riding it out. But again, we got great things going on here. That's Bitcoin. That's what we're looking at. We're either heading maybe down to 45,000 again, or we're working on pushing our way up to 53,000 realistically. Bitcoin dominance. This is, as we all know, this is the thing that dictates how good of a day we're going to have here. We got a falling channel here. Looks like it's probably going to break a trend line. If I was to draw a trend line here, looks like it's probably it looks like it's probably ready to break out of a trend line. We got a fairly oversold hourly chart here. Stochastic RSI oversold. MACD was oversold. But we got bullish signs coming out of Bitcoin dominance here. Do I think that's a permanent thing? Obviously not. It looks pretty fair to say that if it does break out of here, it may run up, tap here, could even run up and tap the 200 moving average. We got a death cross incoming, so it's feasible that may push everything right back down. But as long as this stays the way that it looks right now, oh my goodness, we're in for a treat. And really, I mean, this is a big thing here too. I mean, we got the weekly chart here. Stochastic RSI is in overbought territory. It is curling to a sell. We got the MACD Momo. Just an ever so slight reduction here versus here. This is a daily trend line that I use. The weekly chart is being hamstrung by that. So, yeah, realistically, assuming that this line stays effective, then we should see everything start pushing down again. So, are we in for a treat here very soon? I mean, it's sure as hell looking like it. And if it ends up being anything like this over here, then yeah, I mean, maybe we got several weeks coming where this thing's just going to be red, red, red. And it's working its way through a crash pattern. We know what crash patterns do. You get cross, 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 and it just pushes down each time. So man, things look great out there. I hope you guys are making some money and enjoying this right now. Do it while it's here. And speaking of here, let's go back real quick. And there's our bullish divergence playing out on Bitcoin right now. I'm sitting here making a video, and you guys are hopefully buying some stuff because I was not able to right now. So let's kill it. Let's get it.